Let's run the fast break. Lakers making some headlines this NBA postseason. They're still looking for a head coach. Guess who they're turning to for help with that search? Don't guess. I'm just going to tell you. According to Woj, that guy, Phil Jackson, will be significantly involved. Look, it caused a lot of noise on social yesterday. Nick, good idea or bad idea?
Well, first, let me apologize to our viewers for the quality of that footage. But the last time Phil Jackson was a relevant NBA person, high-definition television didn't exist. So that's why it looked a little grainy there. Listen, is it too much to ask that Linda Rambis, who is not running the local family hardware store, she's running the Lakers. I said Linda Rambis, Jeannie Buss, pardon me. Is it too much to ask that Jeannie Buss, when she's deciding who's going to steward the franchise, look further than the top list of guests of the wedding she almost had to Phil Jackson? It's like, well, I was going to marry Phil, he should be involved. Linda was going to be my maid of honor, she should be involved. Pelinka was going to be on Phil's side, he should be involved. It's the Lakers. Can you, and to use a Wilds line, can you open up the aperture a little bit and not just call what would have been your top 8 on MySpace 20 years ago to figure out who to steward the team? And if you can only call people that would speak at if you ever got an honorary doctorate in your honor, can you maybe X off the one person on that list that has an ongoing multi-year feud with LeBron James? Is that maybe do that? Like, of course Phil Jackson's involved. I mean, of course he's involved. Because why wouldn't he be involved? I mean, Jeannie was once engaged to him. He was great when the Lakers were great, which happened to be, during the W. Bush era. So sure, yeah, let's go ahead and have Phil involved. It's so infuriating, bro. It's really, really makes me mad.
All right,
Entertaining.
Nick, I agree with every single thing you said. I'm going to take it even further. All right, look, I will admit this. If I have my choice of decision makers on this, Phil Jackson, Kurt and Linda Rambis. Yeah, I'm going with Phil in that one. But that's like saying I'd rather have Shaq shooting my free throws than Ben Simmons, all right? Neither one of them is a great option, all right? So Phil Jackson, no, he should not be involved. Phil Jackson, obviously, tremendous coach. And unless he's about to sit on that bench and give some direction, make amends with LeBron first, of course, then I don't want to hear from Phil Jackson. We've seen him in this position, right? He did it with the New York Knicks for 3 years, president of the team. And it was an abject disaster. Let's look at some of his decisions, shall we?
Please.
He fires Mike Woodson as coach. All right, Woodson, by the way, he fired him a year after Woodson led the Knicks to the second round of the playoffs for the second time this millennium. All right, for the second time this millennium. All right, in 20 years or so, they hadn't been to the second round, and Woodson led him there, and then Jackson fires him. He hires Derek Fisher, former player for him. Disaster. When that comes to fruition, he replaces Fisher with Kurt Rambis, his buddy.
Of course. Disaster.
And then when he got rid of Rambis, he replaced him with Jeff Hornacek. Disaster. And this is the guy that is gonna choose maybe your next coach? He was involved in the Frank Vogel decision, Wilds. But look, Vogel's fine. He is a good coach, I believe. But that was the wrong decision. They should have went with Tyronn Lue. They didn't go with Ty Lue because they wanted Vogel. So what was that? 4 coaches that I just named that Jackson made mistakes on? So come on, what are we doing, Lakers?
Okay, stay here, Broussard. This is a serious question. What are the Lakers looking for in a coach? Like, Charlotte fired their coach. They flamed out twice in the play-in games. Didn't feel like they were reaching their potential. They weren't ready. And I think Kenny Atkinson should be the coach because they need to develop their guys to get them to the next level. Be honest with me. What is the defining characteristic that the Lakers coach needs? The ability to put disparate parts and make it work? because I don't know any strategy that could be sort of drawn up on a whiteboard that would make that team work. So the idea that there's this focus on coach rather than Pelinka and roster construction seems to be misplaced. I don't care if you get Red Auerbach out of a time machine and bring him there. I don't think the Lakers win. So I'm at a loss. What's the one defining characteristic you want to see in a Lakers coach? Okay.
I think what you need, Wilds, is a guy that the players will respect and a guy who's strong enough to coach them. So they respect him and he will coach them. He's not afraid of LeBron. He's not afraid of Russ. He's not afraid of AD. To me, look, I think the guy's Mark Jackson. All right, I like Mike Brown. I think Mike Brown is a good candidate for that. Darvin Ham, I think, will be a very good coach. But I don't think you bring in a rookie coach for this veteran team. So that's why I like Mark or Mike Brown.
Just very quickly, I agree with you, Wilds, if your general point is there is way more blood on Pelinka's hands than Vogel's, and that the front office was a bigger problem than the head coaching position. But that ship seems to have sailed. But unless the #1 trait you're looking for in a head coach is the guy who can tell you what the best ayahuasca flavor is, I don't need Phil Jackson consulting on it. I just don't. It's 2022. We can turn the page, please, Jenna. We can. Like, I don't know what good he's going to do.
Let's do that.
Flavors?
Speaking of turning the pages, Grizzlies-Warriors game 2, first quarter. Draymond caught an elbow from Xavier Tillman in the eye. Eye would swell. Dre needed it looked at, so he head to the locker room. And as he's going to the locker room, he would give the Grizzlies fans who were heckling him the old finger, the old double bird. I know the bird goose. Happened on his way out. Dre felt justified, though. Take a listen.
You're gonna boot somebody who get elbowed in the eye and face running on blood, you should get flipped off. So I'll take the fine, I'll go do an appearance and make up the money. But it felt really good to flip them off. You're gonna boot someone that get elbowed in the eye and blood running down your face? I could have had a concussion or anything. So if they're gonna be that nasty, I can be nasty too. And I'm assuming the cheers was because they know I'll get fined. Great, I make $25 million a year. I should be just fine.
All right, Broussard, Draymond's reaction, fair or foul?
Look, on a human level, we all understand where Draymond's coming from, right? You are bleeding. You did have to get stitches, and he's right. He could have had a concussion. It could have been an injury similar to Joel Embiid, orbital fracture, who knows? And they're booing him. So I get where he's coming from. The thing is, though, Nick, we just can't have players flipping off fans. Not habitually. All right, and I do think, look, from Kyrie Irving, I don't think and I don't know, I'm sure it's happened before Kyrie, but that's the one that comes to mind for me. I can't remember the previous one. But once a player does it, and Kyrie did it in Boston, it kind of removes that barrier that players had. Well, oh, I can do it. And now you see it. It's just a couple weeks later, and it's happened again. The league will have to come down on this, and you just don't want this type of adversarial relationship with your players and your fans. So I understand where Dre's coming from, but you still can't do it, Nick.
Yeah, listen, I think that's mostly correct. And Dre did it eyes wide open. He said he knows he's going to get fined. He decided it's worth the fine. He wanted to do it. But just like I didn't think it was the biggest thing in the world, but I thought it was a bad look when Kyrie did it, I feel the same way about Draymond. I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world, but I do think it's a bad look. You should be above that. Here, though, is the unfortunate reality for Draymond Green. He is starting Wilds to become unoriginal. Draymond is one of the most interesting, one of the most undervalued players in the league. However, somebody needs to, give Draymond a quick little basketball, Brew, maybe you can do it. Basketball history lesson, or he's a clutch client, maybe I can do it, of Dennis Rodman. Because there are now starting to be more and more, it's like, oh, I've been to this movie before. Oh, Avatar, that's Fern Gully. Oh, Draymond, that's Rodman. Oh, okay. And I don't think Draymond wants to be unoriginal, but he is walking the same steps that Rodman walked. And so In that regard, I don't think it's a great look. Like, I've been to this movie before. I know what it is. I appreciate the player, but I also don't think you're cutting edge on this stuff, buddy.
Wow. So perhaps a more charismatic bird is what you're arguing for? I think it's a great idea. I just want to drive one final point home, Jenna. A, the $1 million man aspect of Draymond's post-game press conference is just like chef's kiss, because that was original. Like, oh, I've got the money. I'll make an appearance. I'm not even going to come out of my salary. I'll make an appearance. You know what? I'm going to go to some corporate. Maybe I'll go to FedEx. Maybe I'll go to FedEx in Memphis and do a speech on leadership and make up the money and then some. But final point, Jenna. I do think the league is going to have to look at the difference between giving the bird once and giving the bird twice. The league seems to view that as one gesture. I view it as two separate individual gestures doubled. So I think the fine could be doubled. You certainly, if you give one bird, you do not deserve the same fine as someone who gives a double bird. Well, that means the double bird is on sale. It's ridiculous.
You're right. He got his money's worth.
It's
you know
two
what?
for the
It's
price
a
of
good point,
one,
Lyle.
is what it is. Yeah.
Interesting.
Back to last night's action. Did the Boston Celtics take control against the Bucks? And what does it mean moving forward? First things first.